And welcome to today's episode where we're about to turn those random YouTube rabbit holes into powerhouse language input machines. Ever wonder how to squeeze every drop of comprehensible input out of a 12-second clip of a confused cartoon llama? You're in the right place. Oh, and quick heads up, we're shaking things up later this month and moving to Sundays at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. We are premiering our Comprehend This podcast. And our first two guest co-hosts is Yannick Vanderstock and Jody Dinsmore. So I'll welcome them, and we're going to be premiering that on July 20th. So look forward to that. And we've got a few surprises up our sleeves, so stay tuned. We'll update you more before long. So grab your popcorn and your pause button. We'll be right back after this quick intro. And welcome back. How is everybody doing? If you find any value in this, I really encourage you to like, subscribe, and share with other teacher friends so we can get the word out, especially with our new podcasts coming out every Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And it's just going to be a casual chat with me and two other teachers or authors or someone in the CI field, just having a casual conversation about a variety of CI topics. You'll get information, you'll get hacks, you'll get techniques, things to improve, and just have a great conversation. If you can't watch it live on YouTube, you can get the replay on YouTube or on your favorite podcast apps. So let's go ahead and get started for today. So lots of us use videos in our classrooms. And I remember the original version of what this was called Movie Talk. And forgive me, I am horrible with names, and I forgot who is the originator of the Movie Talk. So if anybody remembers, please put it in the chat or in the comments. I'll greatly appreciate it. But he did it for English as a second language, and we all got into that way of doing it. And then we modified it a little bit, and he kindly asked us not to call it Movie Talk anymore unless you were following his prescribed way of doing it. And so then a lot of people renamed what they did as Clip Chat. So whether you call it Clip Chat or Movie Talk, it doesn't really matter. We use videos to help make our stories or whatever we're talking about more comprehensible. I follow the Movie Talk originating point of it rather than the Clip Chat version of it. So for me, I don't use it, and I got to fix my camera, it keeps moving on me. I don't choose my videos based on targeted vocabulary. I pick my videos based on either high interest for my students or cultural aspect, which is the way Movie Talk was intended to do. I can then gear that clip to lower levels, mid levels, or high levels, and I can work around any vocabulary set using that. So we want to pick the right clip for maximum comprehension of the language. So I like to pick input rich, high context clips. So the way that I search for them, and again, I don't do like if I'm teaching family vocabulary, I am not going in and looking for videos that include family vocabulary. I can talk about it from anything. I usually search animated shorts. I like these because they are less than 5 minutes usually. They usually have a punchline, and they have very little, if any, dialogue, but they have sound effects. The way that the originator did it, he would show scenes from actual movies. And he would turn off the sound to start off with, but I think you miss a lot when you don't have the sound effects. And you don't want the talking to come into play because it may not be in the language that you're teaching, number one, and it can also interfere or maybe too complex for comprehension. So I like animated shorts, and that's what I search for to do that. And I look for ones that are highly interesting to my students. And so that's really easy for me to work with. And then I can make any of these apply to the vocabulary that I'm teaching. Let's say I am working with family vocabulary. One of the movie talks that I like to do is Mouse for Sale. You can search for that on YouTube. And it's about a boy who goes into a pet store and he ends up buying a mouse as a pet. So I can talk about who is his brothers or sisters or parents or grandparents. I can bring that all in there. I can ask, do you think his mom wants him to bring a mouse home? I can bring that in, any of those things, and bring that vocabulary in without having to stretch hard or search for something that's specifically family oriented that may not be as interesting as this one. This has got some funny punchlines in it. It's got a scene about bullying in there that I can talk about because the mouse has really big ears, and some kids come in and start making fun of the mouse. So I can teach lessons in that as well. So there's lots of stuff that I can do with these animated shorts, and I really, really like them. So if you don't like animated shorts, look for something else that's short or has real world interactions. Another couple, there's two other famous ones. One is The Black Hole, which is about a guy with a copy machine, and there is a black circle on one of the copy machine's papers, and it's a magical circle. He can put his hand through the circle and reach in and grab things. So that's one. Another one, blind luck, that's what it's called, is about a blind man who goes into a shop to buy a lottery ticket, and then the person who's selling the lottery ticket notices he wins the lottery ticket and tries to steal it from him. So again, lessons in there. Those are real world ones, but I highly suggest that you find one that is 5 minutes or less. Even 5 minutes can be long. I can stretch one of these 3-minute videos to easily a 2-week lesson. 1 week I'm working with the video and we're going through there, and the second week I'll make a reading from the video and we'll work with the reading and other practice activities that go along with it. Once you pick your video that you want to use, you want to preview it and pre-teach any key structures. Now, here's my rule for that. I am not going to pre-teach a structure if there's little to no likelihood that kids are going to need that vocabulary item. Let me just give an example. Let's say I've got a video and there's a snail in there. They obviously don't have the word for snail. And it's not high frequency, so I'm not going to waste my time pre-teaching that vocabulary. What I'm going to do is I am going to just put it up on the screen. So I like to go through, I make screenshots of my videos before we get to the actual video. And on the screenshot, I'll put one screenshot per slide on a slide deck like Google Slides. And then I'll put key vocabulary that's not important to learn, but they need to know to understand it. Another one I do, these two octopuses one gets taken away by a sushi truck. And so the word octopus is not, again, a high frequency. I don't care if they learn it. They will learn it because it comes up so often in that story because those are the key characters. But I just gloss it on the screen. I'm not going to pre-teach it. But any other key vocabulary that is useful, I want to give my students pre-exposure. and work with it, maybe through some TPR or some actions and gestures, maybe through some short mini stories before we get there, so they're somewhat familiar with it. They don't have to know it like this, but I want them to be somewhat familiar with that. So you want to start with short, high impact segments. Use 10 to 30-second clips that are manageable but packed with meaningful language. So the way it was originally intended is the originator would go ahead and show like 10 or 30 seconds of the video, then he would rewind and pause and talk about what's happening. He was working with college students. College students have infinitely more patience than middle or high school students. When I tried doing that with my middle or high school students, they were just like, can we just move on to the video? Just play it through. And I didn't want to do that because there's that punchline. I wanted them to lead up to that. And it's also really hard to get good at live in class, rewinding and pausing at the key moments and not going any further than you need to go or that you wanted to go at that time. So a lot of us teachers came up with the idea of taking screenshots. So I'll go through the video and then I'll look for key scenes that I want to talk about. And then I will make screenshots with each of those. And as I said, I will gloss the key vocabulary with each one. And then I can talk about each of those screenshots for 5 to 10 minutes before moving on to the next one. And it will be packed with meaningful language that I can talk about. Next, let's talk about scaffolding. So we want to be able to scaffold for deep comprehension. And so we want to silently view first. So have students watch with no sound and predict what's happening before adding the audio. And if you do this, you don't want to show that last scene, that punchline. You want to stop right there. And if you use the screenshot thing, it's the same way. I do all my screenshots up to the punchline, then I show the whole video so they can see the punchline in action on the video. And then I have the last couple of screenshots that depict the punchline that we can talk about in the target language. But if you want to do this, you can show them the screenshots before talking about them, or turn off the sound and show them the video up to the punchline and have them predict what they think is going to happen. While you are doing the screenshots, or if you're playing it and pausing it and rewinding it, you want to use pause and questioning strategies. So you're going to pause and point. Point to the things that you're talking about. Point to the vocabulary that's either on the screen, or if you write new vocabulary on your board, point and pause to it. You're going to ask your yes, no, either or, and your who, what, where, when, how questions about what's happening on that slide or in that segment. And you're going to scaffold these. You know how to do this. So you ask your yes and no questions to your struggling students, the ones who are trying to understand but are struggling with it. You're going to ask your either or questions, or your simple who, what, when, and where questions that can be answered easily to your mid-level students. And then you're going to reserve your how and your why because they require more language for your upper level students in your classroom. And that way you can scaffold by asking the right question to the right student at the right time, which is so very important. And just like a lawyer never asks a question they don't already know the answer to, you don't ever want to ask a question of a student that you aren't confident that they can successfully answer. The questioning technique is not to put them on the spot and make them look bad. We want to give them the level of question that we are confident that they can answer successfully. It makes them look good. And then by asking questions of our struggling students, if they can answer them, then the odds are the rest of the class can answer it as well. And so they're with you. If you ask a question to your mid-level or to your high-level students and they can answer it, it doesn't mean that the struggling students could answer that same question or understand. So use your struggling students as like your barometer to see whether or not kids are comprehending, but you're asking the other questions to your mid and your high-level students to get that, to challenge them at their particular level. And then you want to layer comprehension type activities. We're going to start with those yes, no, or multiple choice questions and then move to open-ended questions or even retell tasks. So I like to have somebody volunteer to retell what happened in a particular slide. So I'll have dozens of these slides, and that gives dozens of opportunities for students to be able to retell. And I might start having them retell to their partners. When I do that, I have them talk at the exact same time. Why? 3 reasons. The first reason, nobody wants to talk, and nobody wants someone else to listen to them talk. So if they're all talking at the same time at each other, no one's listening. 2, the struggling student in the pair is always going to volunteer the other student to go first so they can hear it, and then they're going to pair it to their best of their ability what they said. So they're not actually doing their own work. And third is for time constraints. If you do this with every slide and you do like a 30-second retell, that's a minute per slide that you're using. And although retells are a great activity because they build student confidence, they don't do anything for language acquisition. So I don't want to waste too much time on that particular activity. And if I have an odd number of students, that means I'm going to have a group of 3, and that's going to be a minute and a half I'm going to have to go. Whereas if I have them all go at the same time for 30 seconds, I'm only using that 30 seconds per slide. And then I can ask for a volunteer to do it in front of the class, or not like get up in front of the class, but just sit at their seat and do it for the whole class at that point. When they're all talking, I'm going to roam and just listen for some things, see who's really struggling, who's got the confidence, so I can see kind of like a informal formative assessment there just to kind of see where they are. And our last bit for today is to talk about elevating speaking and output from these video clips. So we talked earlier about predictions. So we can use things like what happens next. ¿Qué va a pasar? What's going to happen? And have students discuss and create possible continuations of the scene. This is a great activity for think, pair, share activity. So have them think of an answer, share it with their neighbor, and then share out to the class. So that works out really, really well. And you get the prediction activities, which is higher order thinking skills. They're going to have to create their own language, whether it be simple or advanced, it doesn't matter. But they're creating language. They're not going to be able to pair it because we haven't talked about what happens next yet. So I can really get a good feel for where they're at, what their proficiency level is. You can turn clips into interactive storytelling. So you can assign roles and have students recreate or narrate the scene in their own words. Bring up students and have them play the characters in the scene. Have them act it out. Have them narrate it. Have another student narrate it while the other 2 characters act. If there's no dialogue in the story, have the students either repeat dialogue that you tell them to do and repeat in their ears and they repeat after you. Or if they're more advanced, have them create the dialogue that's appropriate on the spot. If you have kids that are so weak that they can't repeat after you, or it's going to get all gobbledygooked, or their pronunciation is going to be really bad, we don't want to embarrass them or cause any reason for them to be made fun of. So what we'll do is I will go behind them and with a funny voice, I will talk. And then I'll like tap them on the shoulder and tell them every time I tap them on the shoulder, they're to open their mouth. So they become like human puppets and they can talk. And that's kind of funny in itself to do that type of thing. And we want to leverage structured output. So we want to give students sentence starters or key vocabulary to guide their responses. So as I said, always on my slides, I have key vocabulary on there. But invariably, when I go through the slides, other vocab comes up or vocab I thought they might have understood already, they might not know. So I'll have to write it up on the board. So they'll have that, use that for them. I'll give them a sentence starter to help them through whatever they're talking about because I want to set my students up for success and build confidence. When they have confidence, they're more apt to draw within the language abilities that they have to communicate what they want to communicate. So, that's a wrap on turning tiny video clips into giant CI wins. If you got even one good idea, do me a favor and smash that like button. Share this with your teacher BFFs and hit subscribe so you don't miss our shiny new shows. And remember, starting on the 20th of July, we are going live on Sundays, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central. I'm sorry, 11 a.m. Eastern. And before you go, drop this in the comments. What's the weirdest clip you've ever used to teach language? I need new material for my llama collection. See you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.